Okay, thesis statement. Thesis simply means a statement that is put forward, something propounded, something put forth. And it is an idea, usually an idea, a statement, a proposition, the main point of the thesis, or the paper, or the essay. You may be used to writing papers that may be general or informative, but in papers of the kind that you will have to write at TC College, if you have already done one or two papers, you will know. You will have to write a paper that has a central idea. So in your introduction, you will have to make a claim. In your introduction, you will have to state very clearly the problem that you're dealing with, the method of study, and the idea that you're beginning with. Okay, we will look at one or two things, and then after that, we will talk about it. Okay, this statement is basically something to do with absolute specificity. Absolute specificity. It is not a descriptive paper. The term paper is not a descriptive paper. Of course, it does describe the problem, but the main issue of the paper, the main point of the paper has to be absolutely precise, succinct, and specific. Like, for instance, if you're in an MRT station in Singapore or a similar one in Hong Kong, you're not going to get into any train that is empty. You know your destination, and you know the direction. In Singapore, you know the different lines that are there. And so you know where you're going, and therefore you have to plan it. So the problem in the term paper has to be the central issue that the paper wants to investigate, or the issue it problematizes. So, like, for instance, if you're interested, just for the sake of saying it, if you're interested, you could make a study on the idea of the church. Like, for instance, you can go to Pauline letters or the Gospels or anywhere in the New Testament, or the idea of the community of the covenant people in the Old Testament. So you're not going to write a textbook. So in your term paper, what is the issue? What's the issue with the church idea? So what's the problem? You'll have to study. So maybe, let's say, the problem of ethnic conflicts, or even the problem of ethnic plurality, the different kind of people you meet, or gender plurality. Anything can be problematized. So you'll have to specify what the problem is all about. So be precise, concise, very briefly, succinct, absolutely, precisely, and exact. Repeating the same thing to make the point that the problem has to be clearly stated. You could say, well, this paper investigates, that's the language, investigates. This paper explores such and such an issue. Then you could say, for instance, there have been several other clarifications, several other descriptions, several other understandings of the same problem, but this paper deals with this particular aspect of this problem. You could say that. One of the things that you may have noticed, that there have been other interpretations or the descriptions of the problem. The reason I said that is that sometimes our description of the problem itself is the problem, because we may not understand it in the exact way, precisely what is the issue. Like, for instance, if you're going to a GP, a doctor, if you have some serious stomach ulcer, uh, his treatment will have to be exactly to deal with or to treat the stomach ulcer. Panadol Extra is not the solution. Okay, so that's that kind of a thing. Then I would also suggest the definitions and clarifications. Okay, what do I mean by that? In the term paper, the question will be, what do you mean by this? Okay, so you should not take anything for granted. Your definition may not be the definition that your reader may have. Like in your case, I may be the only reader anywhere under the sun. So I would certainly want to know what you mean by what you say and why you say what you say. How did you arrive at the definition? On what criteria? Or is this the only definition that is available? Or has anyone else defined the same thing differently? And so if you have borrowed the definition, the rationale for borrowing this definition and the sources of your definition, all these things are there. So this is to make sure that I understand your point of view and understand what you mean by what you say. So, in a term paper, nothing is left to the inference or nothing is left to the imagination or to the interpretation of your reader. In your case, it will be me. So, you shouldn't leave anything for me to assume or for me to write and ask for clarification. So, definitions and clarifications. Then the term paper is also about stating a hypothesis. What is the hypothesis? An initial idea. A supposition or proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation. That's the definition of hypothesis, a starting point. Okay, so we talked about the church. Let us say, just to illustrate, we talked about gender plurality. So you could say, well, the term paper problematizes, or the term paper wants to investigate the issue of gender plurality. Whether the idea of plurality should be a cause of confrontation, encounter, and conflict, or can it also be complementary or something like that? So this paper will investigate these two issues, and it will clarify, it will further explore whether the gender issues can be one of complementary roles or complementary functions, not necessarily conflicts or something like that. But at the end of your study, you will have to come back and clarify whether your hypothesis still holds or your further investigation or research suggests exactly the opposite. So you will have to come back and clarify that hypothesis. So if you wish to take a position or develop a claim about a subject, convey that position or claim as an initial hypothesis at the beginning of your paper. So what do we mean? Okay, you could say, well, the paper to begin with takes the position that you can clarify what the issue is. And it will explore, it will investigate, it will do its research and demonstrate the hypothesis. So it will have its own arguments, it will have its own evidence, and on the basis of arguments and evidence, you will have to clarify whether the point of view that you take is logical and it is right to the extent arguments and your evidence allow. When an assignment asks you to analyze, to interpret, to compare, to demonstrate cause and effect, or to take a stand on an issue, it means that you are expected to develop a thesis with persuasive arguments and evidence. I cannot emphasize this more than this, that in the paper, in any course, for instance. It doesn't have to be only this course, but any course that you do, and in any paper that you write, you have to develop a thesis with persuasive arguments and evidence. What is persuasive arguments and evidence? Why? And why not? That's the point. What is descriptive understanding, but why is this and why not this is the point of persuasion. So if you're persuading, you have to use certain arguments, certainly. How do you establish this even as a problem? How do you establish this as a point that your reader, anybody, should think that it is worth considering this point of view, or if it's not worth it? Like, for instance, this week, all of you have done this study of Jesus in the book of Genesis. Some have taken the view, not everyone in the class is here, but some have taken the view that the presentist point of view is fully understandable, in the sense it is acceptable because we, as Christians, are taught, or we have been programmed to think that anywhere you turn to in the Old Testament, you should see Jesus, you should see Christ. It is as if the Old Testament were a huge Christological document. And so it is from that point of view we are looking at it. Whereas if you do that, you can do that. I'm not saying you cannot. And it's neither right nor wrong. But if you do that, for instance, we are not looking at the Old Testament as the Hebrew Bible, the Bible of the Jews, Bible of the ancient Hebrews. So for them, from their point of view, there isn't anything anywhere in their writing that even remotely suggests that anything in their scripture points to or looks forward to or anticipates the Jesus as the Christ that Christians hold. There isn't anything like that. But as Christians, we are looking at it that way. But okay, you can say that. But if you can say, well, this paper will explore whether or not the Jesus Christ that Christians hold as divine is already suggested in the Hebrew scriptures. You can take that point of view and make a case. You can. I'm not saying you cannot or you should not. You can, but you'll have to argue. In the forum today, in my reflection, I have asked you to go, if possible, to the Jewish Study Bible. Jewish Study Bible is written by or edited by Jewish scholars. They are not Christians. They are Jewish scholars, Hebrew scholars, scholars in Hebrew language, and they know Greek as well, very well. So if your reader is a Hebrew scholar, let us say a Jewish scholar, to what extent your arguments will even convince him, or rather, at least interest him enough to read your paper further. So you will have to make a case. That's the whole idea. Nobody under the sun is going to say, well, you cannot make that claim. You can make that claim, but you have to make your arguments stronger. After you finish your investigation, revisit your hypothesis and the research questions and check whether you have investigated the issue, answered all your questions, and whether your investigation supports or confirms your hypothesis. Okay, the point is to do your entire research and revisit your introduction, because it is in your introduction where you have clarified your position, where you have suggested certain questions, hypotheses. So did your investigation confirm your hypothesis, in which case that hypothesis will become your thesis, or whether your investigation contradicts it. And therefore, your hypothesis will have to be rewritten. Otherwise, it will be a null thesis, in which case there is no thesis at all. You haven't done any work. And therefore, you have to revisit and make sure that you have answered all your questions. One of the things that I have noticed, because this is not the first time I am doing this, and I have also offered hermeneutics as an on-site course. One of the things I have noticed in the term paper that students across the board do is that to follow the interpretive guidelines that the textbook gives as the outline of the paper. That is not it. That is only an idea of what you should bear in mind, what you should keep in mind. But the outline emerges or outline evolves out of an idea. How is the idea itself developed? So the outline has to come from the thesis, not from this one. So there is no template really. It's the main idea that is the guiding factor. Like for instance, if you're going to watch a movie, you're going to watch the movie or the story. You're not going to watch each actor. Each actor, you think of the guideline. The actor is not the main point. The story is the main point. That's what we are looking at. Then the title of the term paper, a single sentence, should reflect the thesis statement. This is something that I find extraordinarily difficult to understand when it comes to the term paper. Many students simply say this paper is an exegetical paper, simply that. Or Old Testament exegesis or New Testament exegesis. The assignment question is not the term paper title, cannot be and should not be. So it should reflect the thesis statement very succinctly. A discourse analysis or a literary critical analysis or a narrative study of all those things. And
Babu, I have a question.
yes, please.
Sorry. Yeah. So I see that the exegetical paper sample that is provided in the writing resource,
Mhm.
and that one follows this format of going through, what is the historical, all these different things that you talk about. So essentially, you're saying that actually we don't have to follow that format, correct?
I'm not saying you should or you should not, but look at it because it depends on the purpose of the paper.
Mm,
Okay, like for instance, if you're asking historical questions, you have to go back to the historical questions. Like for instance, if you're studying the idea of a date, you must clarify why is the date important for the thesis of the paper. Who
mm-hmm,
is the author? Where was the book written? And when was it written? To whom it was written? Why was it written? And what are some of the factors that precipitated the writing itself? And so
okay.
you will have to ask the historical questions only if the thesis of the paper necessitates that. So
Mm,
nothing should be done just for the sake of it. And so, yes, that paper has only that is only to illustrate what you should roughly keep in mind. But to do or not to do, to follow or not to follow that will depend on the kind of interest that you have in your paper. What's the central focus? So you can take a theological idea, but to talk about a theological idea, you may not necessarily have to go back to the historical questions unless you're saying where the theology originated from. Why was it propounded and all this kind of things? Yeah. So yeah, well, it's a good question, but you will have to see whether it is needed at all. Yeah, that's the point.
Thanks, that's very helpful because I thought that when I looked at the sample, I thought that for this type of paper, you have to follow exactly the format. So I think you answered my question. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking that question. So,
Then,
yes.
sorry, I have another question on slide 2.
Okay.
It says problem and hypothesis. Are we saying that are we saying that we have to first state the problem? Say, for example, the problem is uh, some people do not know whether Jesus is God or man. And that's a problem. And is it the case that the hypothesis is then to say, the hypothesis I have is that Jesus is both God and man? Is that how you kind of differentiate between the problem and the hypothesis?
Okay. First of all, okay. From where you should clarify, from where did you get the idea that Jesus is God, or Jesus is both God and human being? From where did you get that idea? I'm not saying you cannot hold it, but I'm not saying it is a problem too. But you could say, well, this paper investigates whether Jesus is God or whether Jesus is both God and human, and the sources, the legitimate or logical sources, authoritative sources from where you got this idea. Because Jesus is God and human is a distinctly later idea. Okay, so and it's a modern idea. So you are reading your theological preference, Christological preference into the text, which is not exegesis at all. So it's not even a hypothesis, it's a preference. You like to read it that way. Like what you're saying is no different from what you watched in the video this week. He says he prefers to see Jesus in the book of Genesis, and you prefer to call, you is a way of saying you prefer to call Jesus both human and God. It was a theological development that came much later in the second or third century. It's not anywhere in the New Testament. You can say that because Jesus never called himself God, and he called himself the Son of Man. Others called him the Son of God. He never called himself even the Son of God. And if he called in his own time, called himself the Son of God, the Jewish authorities would have stoned him to death. So there are issues. I'm not saying you cannot, but you'll have to make an issue. But from where did you get this idea is what is important. So the hypothesis says that this paper takes this position and will, with arguments and evidence, clarify whether this is theologically, exegetically valid point or not. So then at the end of it, you can say, well, at the end of the research, that the idea that Jesus is God and both God and human and God is not, I'm just glad, just to make a point, is not a New Testament idea, but an idea that came much later in the history of church, because you'll have to read all kinds of creeds. For instance, it's not to do with the New Testament exegesis, but it has to do with the history of the church. So it takes your research to another. It takes your research to another what to say, another area altogether, another subject altogether.
Okay.
Dr. Babu, one more question, related question. So when we are crafting the thesis statement, we will be focusing on the hypothesis, but the problem statement, would it be part of the thesis statement, or
Yes,
would
yes,
it be?
yeah.
Okay.
Right. Like, I mean, what's the problem? You could say, well, this paper, any paper, problematizes the idea. Just to go back to the same point, problematizes problem in the sense it investigates the issue whether or not Jesus is God, or whether he was simply human being who was divinized or who was deified. And the initial hypothesis is this. You could say that.
Okay. Thank you.
So we will finish this, and then we will take such wonderful questions. Okay, so the term paper title should reflect the thesis statement. So, for instance, it's a wonderful point to illustrate. You could say in your term paper, Jesus, Son of Man, Son of God, God, a historical investigation. You could do that kind. The rest of the paper, outline, structure, and the body of the essay should organize the idea and interpret it cogently to confirm the thesis. So everything in the paper should, in some sense, add to the thesis of the paper. There isn't anything in the paper that is not logically, rationally connected to the central idea of the paper. That's the one thing. See, like I have read in many term papers, students tend to take very attractive, very flamboyant statements from different sources. And sometimes they even think that a nice, wonderful sermon-like title will be an attractive one or a convincing one. I'm not impressed at all. It's not necessary. So in the paper, I may say, well, this is a good sermon point. This is a good sermon outline, or this is a good sermon title. But for me, it has to be absolutely, absolutely, utterly, ultimately specific to the issue. I am not impressed with any embellishments. It is a term paper, it's an academic work. So this is not a place where students are expected to confirm their beliefs, their doctrinal positions, or preferred theological understandings. My respects, certainly. And this paper is not to confirm that. This is an academic work. So I will need any anything to do or everything to do with logic, reason, and reasoning and arguments and wise historical questions if necessary. All those things have to be there. And the outline will have to proceed from the main idea. That's the point. Then the assignment topic is not the title of the term paper. I clarified that. The term paper is not a sermon. I said that again. Therefore, the term paper title cannot be a sermon title. That, honestly, forgive me, that's one thing that has really frustrated me. Surprisingly, many students think that they're writing to convince or to preach in a church. It is not. This is an academic place. This is an academic paper, a scholarly work. In a sermon, you're going to state everything as it is. This is it kind of a presentation. You don't have to have arguments. You can make any claim, like for instance, Jesus is God. You can make a claim in a sermon, but in a term paper, it will have to be argued. And I'm not saying I'm not open to that idea, any idea, but I will need to see the arguments. That's one thing. The other thing, the point of the paper is not to convince me. I may not be convinced, but I would certainly be more than keen to look at the arguments. So I will look at the arguments. How did you arrive at the conclusion? What led you to this? What are the sources that have informed you? And what are the scholarly discussions that have guided you here? These are the things. So you have to stand on the shoulders of the giants, certainly not on the sermons you may have heard, or the sermons you may have preached, or the sermons you may have read. That's the whole point. Then before starting to write a paper, work on 50-word abstract of the idea you have. And I can tell you why I suggest this. I found it extraordinarily interesting. Both when I did my master's, we had to write about 25,000 word thesis. I wrote 50 word abstract of my whole idea. It came much before I started writing, but much after I read quite extensively on a particular issue I was investigating. Then when I did my PhD, you come to think of it, it was 4-year program, and the word limit allowed was 100,000 words, including footnotes. Then, when I had to send my work for examination and viva, I had to write a 300-word abstract. Fine. Then when I sat in the viva, which is a sort of make or break kind of a time, my examiners, all big time New Testament scholars, asked me this question: can you state your thesis in one statement? You think of it. I've taken 4 years to do this research. I've taken 75 to 8,000 words to write this. And I wrote a 300-word abstract, but now I had to keep them in one sentence what the dissertation is all about. If I did not, then I haven't done my research. That's the whole point. So I would suggest, even for your own sake, you will have to work in your mind, what am I writing about? So what is the main issue? What is the main point that I'm arguing for? What's the case that I'm making, and for what? And on what grounds? And on what evidence? Yeah, that will be of much great help to you. Then choose sources that are specific to your topic. Again, as it was clarified, for instance, in the syllabus itself. Church, magazines, sermons, these are not academic sources. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, anything related to that is not the academic source. And the internet websites, they are not academic sources. So you will have to go back to peer-reviewed journals. You have, and of course, very fortunately, you have full access to EBSCO and all articles from peer-reviewed journals. Then sources published by academic publishers or university publishers like Cambridge University Press, Oxford University Press, London University Press, or Sheffield Academic Press, or you could think of Erdmans or Zondervan. Think of all these big-time academic publishers. I'm telling you why. It's not that they don't allow space for you to have your own ideas, but the scholars who have written there have considered one point of view from different points of view before they take their own position. So they had to find a niche, meaning they had to find their own space. This is not the first ever time they are saying something about an idea, because people have said over however many centuries several things on the same topic, but they'll have to find space for their own idea. That's what you call niche. So choose your sources that are specific to your topic, that will guide you well, because the sources you consult will influence the way you think, will influence the way you use language. One of the things, honestly, you must forgive me for what I'm going to say, that has surprised me is that after reading a paper or two, I can very safely predict what every other paper is going to say. The reason is that every paper chooses a language or an idea in exactly the same way. It is as if you have a central dictionary or glossary of terms. It is as if every idea is taken from that. There isn't anything new, and that is really, really, really frustrating. And I do not really appreciate that. So I would say, from where did you get this? What has led you to this? And I have also shown, out of frustration, the sources from where such ideas come, in order for the students to know that they haven't thought well. So I would encourage you, because you're starting, I would encourage you very strongly to look at your own sources very carefully. and question the sources. Don't take anything for granted. Don't accept anything as stated. Ask questions. Nothing should be taken without questioning it. Don't take even what I'm saying without questioning it. And ask questions. Take and subject everything that you read, everything that you hear, to an absolutely brutal intellectual scrutiny, scholarly scrutiny. And only after that, if anything stays back, you should say, well, this is worthy of further investigation, further consideration. But I think everything depends on the sources you will consult. So I would very strongly encourage you to look at the academic publishers and scholarly publications. So sources are very important. Then moving from here, it's a short video presentation by a scholar, how to write a clear and strong thesis statement. Very short presentation, but very informative. Let us watch that.
Hey there, it's Wendy from Worldwide Speak. I'd like to talk to you today about the thesis statement. A lot of times my students are confused about what a thesis statement is. So I've made this video to clear things up. Also, if you haven't subscribed, you might want to do that now so that you know when our latest videos are available and you can watch them right away. All right, what is a thesis statement? Well, here's a pretty basic definition of what one is from dictionary.com. It's a short statement that usually summarizes the main point or claim or opinion of your essay, and it's developed and supported and explained with examples, reasons, or evidence. But what really is it? It's the most important piece of your essay. This statement is your paper. It's your argument or the point that you're trying to make. Your entire paper, your entire essay centers around this one crucial statement, which is why you need to get this right and why I've made this video. So let's look at it more closely. All right, so when we talk about the thesis statement, one way I like to describe it to my students is for them to think about it like a destination for a vacation. You know exactly the very specific place that you're going to, and that's like your thesis. You know where you're going in your paper, right? You have an opinion or an argument that you would like to convey or to tell your reader, and it's very specific, and it's one place or one idea. You are trying to convince people that this is the best place to visit, this destination you're going to. Well, in your paper, this convincing, like you would convince a friend that the place you're vacationing is the best, in your paper, it's going to be clear and it's going to be strong. You're going to convince people. And lastly, when you're going to your destination, you plan accordingly. You know, if you're going skiing, you're not packing sundresses, right? You're going to pack your ski equipment and clothing for the appropriate weather. And that planning and that support for your destination, your vacation, that's your support and your details in your paper. So you're going to one place, right? That's your thesis, one idea. And then all of the planning that goes into your paper or into your vacation, that's your support in your details. And it's very clear and strong because you know where you're going. All right, so what are the parts or the pieces that make up this super strong thesis statement? First, you have to decide on your topic, and it needs to be really specific. This informs or tells the reader what your paper is about. Then The second part of it is that you need to have your opinion or your argument or your idea. This is the part where you decide what you want the reader to know about your topic. This is where you state your opinion, one that is debatable and relevant. And lastly, you are going to include your reasons or your plan, right? Just like how you plan a trip. This is the part where you tell the reader how you will support your opinion with your reasons and evidence. It's the because part of your paper. Okay, so I just told you about the three pieces or three parts of the thesis statement. You need a specific topic, you need your opinion, and then you need to show how you're going to do that with your reasons. So let's go through this in detail. So the first part is the topic. And we already know that tells the reader what your paper is about. Well, let's say we were writing a paper about the best vacation destination while we're on the topic of talking about vacations. And we wanted to write about the topic winter sports. That's kind of bad because it's just way too big. It's too big of a topic. Well, what if we then said, okay, well, let me pick one of those winter sports. How about skiing? It's a little bit better because it's not as big as winter sports, but it's still, it's not specific enough. We really need to narrow our focus to have a strong, clear, effective thesis statement. So what about if we got really specific and we said, ski vacation at Telluride? For those of you who don't know, Telluride is a ski resort in the state of Colorado in the United States, and it is absolutely lovely. All right, number two, that's where we give our opinion or our argument or our idea about this super specific topic. Well, what if we were to write something like this? A ski vacation at Telluride is fun. Well, that's bad because it's just way too obvious and it's really not debatable. I mean, that fun is just my opinion and can't really be debated as a topic. So then what if we wrote something like this? A ski vacation at Telluride is my favorite vacation. It's better, but it's still not good enough because it's only about you. It's this individual opinion. It's not really debatable. So let's see if the third time is the charm. What if we wrote something like this? A ski vacation at Telluride is a unique experience. Well, here we go. It's my opinion, but it's also debatable. I can describe this unique experience with specific reasons. Which brings me to number three, our reasons or your plan of your paper. Just like when you plan a vacation, you have everything mapped out. The same thing is true with your paper. And in your thesis statement, you let the reader know what your plan is. And we do this with our reasons. And so for this topic, in this thesis statement, one of the reasons could be the historic town. Another reason could be the amazing ski hill. And then the last reason could be that there's exquisite après-ski dining. So there you have it. You see how you really have to narrow down your topic and your opinion and then be very specific with your reasons in order to have a strong thesis statement. Now, let's take a look at what happens when we put all of these pieces together to make this thesis statement. This is what it looks like. A ski vacation at Telluride is a unique experience because of its historic town, amazing ski hill, and exquisite après-ski dining. If you see here in this thesis statement, there are three pieces. There is the super specific topic, that's the ski vacation at Telluride. There's my opinion about it, that it's a unique experience. And then the third part is I tell you why it's a unique experience because of three reasons. So, hopefully, this helps you clear up any confusion about writing a thesis statement and writing one that's really strong, clear, and effective. And remember, your thesis statement is your essay. It's the most important statement in the entire essay. You've got to get it right.
Okay, here I will stop sharing because that's the end of the slide. I'll stop sharing, then we can take questions. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the presenter gave us very wonderful, lovely, very specific idea of how to write a strong thesis statement. If you watched it carefully, she said it's a debatable one. Scientifically speaking, any idea should be debatable, of course, should also be a falsifiable one. That is a scientific idea. So somebody said, science may give you questions that you cannot answer, but religion may give you answers that you cannot question. But I hope in a term paper, it doesn't come like that, that you state your ideas with this is it, and it's not arguable, it's not debatable, kind of a force. So anything should be debatable. That opinion, this is my opinion, is the hypothesis that we were talking about. So that's what we looked at. And so you have any further thoughts, any clarification you need, or anything that you want to add? Jason, thank you for joining. Yes, Tuck.
Yeah, so I was looking through the list of different passages that we can consider for the term paper. So is it the case that based on the passage that is selected, I have to kind of look at what is an area that is kind of often debated about this passage?
Not often debated, but you can choose any idea, but the idea itself should be a debatable one. It's not
Okay.
an idea that is debated, but you're taking an idea that should be a debatable one. That's the point of the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting because like I've always read it as okay, this is the truth, and you accept it, and now it's
No,
sort of
no,
like turning it the other way around.
no. Okay. So it may be truth for you. My respects, but your truth doesn't have to be truth for me. It's very highly subjective, but you will have to make a case, you have to argue, you have to debate, and debatable also means that it's your point of view, and therefore you are presenting it from your point of view. So since I'm reading, then I will ask serious questions because you must forgive me. I don't simply accept anything as stated. My mind is not wired to do that. I will ask questions. I need to be convinced. Okay, so I don't think anyone here is as old as I am. But I'm sure you will grow to be as old as I am one day. But I've come to a stage where I cannot be easily convinced or impressed. Uh, but again, you must not, the point of the term paper is not to convince me. The point of the term paper is to think logically. Somebody said the point of education is the training of the mind to think. Okay, so that's all for me. That's important for me, and that's enough for me. So I'm not in your term paper. I'm not interested even one bit, even an iota of your beliefs, your theologies, your doctrines, what you are convinced of. My respects, but they are yours. I don't need to know. But if you're writing a term paper, it has to be technically scholarly and an academic work. Yeah. Very good. Anything else anybody will have?
I think the syllabus suggests a certain way to approach the term paper, right, in terms of the contents. So, how do we weave that into what you just shared in terms of the cell sections in the outline?
Like,
I think the syllabus talks about, I mean, okay, you have to define the problem statement and
yeah.
maybe you have to do a word analysis and all that.
Okay. Word analysis or word study. Okay, yeah, I told you the course itself was designed by somebody else. Okay, but because I'm just running the course, and I'm going to be the reader. But for me, anything has to have a strong reason. Everything has to have a strong reason. So even if you're doing a word study, you shouldn't do word study just for the sake of it because it follows a certain pattern. It's not like that. If you're doing a word study, why that the study or the analysis of that particular word is important. Of all the words in the text, why that word? And what is its connection to the thesis of the paper? So it must add to it. Like, for instance, if you're studying the idea of the church, is an important one because technically it's a political idea originally. It was originally a city council, and the members were the free citizens of a polis, a state. And only free citizens, people who belong to the higher socio-economic echelon, were members. Okay, so if you're taking that word, for instance, ecclesia, you could study because in some little sense, it helps to explain why the church is a place where gender equality can be talked about and in what sense you can talk about it. So it is in that sense. So word study is important, but only to the extent it adds to the main idea of the paper. So I don't want you to mechanically follow every section. It's as if you have ticked this thing, ticked that thing. So even if you did everything mechanically, followed everything, and it doesn't add anything to the thesis of the paper, there is no point. So that's all.
Thanks for clarifying because generally we have been told to follow the syllabus and the
Yeah, follow the
outline.
syllabus. Yes, follow.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know if you have food court idea in Hong Kong, but certainly in Singapore you have food courts. Okay, if you're walking into a food court, will you go to every stall and pick one thing and put into your in your plate? You will choose only what you need and what you like, and only however much your hunger will need. It's somewhat like that. So you will choose a word and study it carefully and word our words and see how the study adds to the main idea. You shouldn't follow anything mechanically. Like, for instance, even in the sections, for many students have given the background of the book. Let's say, for instance, you're studying the Gospel of Matthew. So you may give the background of the book, the who the author is or was, and all this kind of things. And then suddenly it may come to another point, but without stating the link, showing the link between the sections. Why? Why was this background study important for the thesis? Good. Anything? Did I answer your question, Johnson?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Jezreel, you're okay? Are you calling from Jezreel in Israel?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah,
Oh, very interesting name,
yeah.
Jezreel. Okay. Yuan, you okay? Good. Jason? Dillis? Fine. Okay. Tuck, you're okay enough? Or you have any other question?
Nope, still processing it.
Okay, that's okay. Very good. Okay, I won't hold you. But in the meantime, think about your term paper. Earlier, only in week 5 did I have a similar Zoom session. But then over the years, I realized that if this kind of a presentation is possible or meeting is possible, it might help the students to think a little bit more clearly and write a strong term paper. And that's the point. So don't start writing. Read as widely, as extensively as you can on the issue that you're going to investigate. And the wider you read, the more you understand the problem, the better you can write your own term paper. That's my strong take. Okay. Well, I won't hold you. If there isn't any more question, I wish you all very well and an enjoyable paper writing. And think of your term paper as your masterpiece, as your absolutely brilliant, wonderful literary work. And who knows, you might get the Nobel Prize for Literature. Yes, I wish you that kind of a success. Okay, take care.
Thank you, Dr. Babu.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Babu.
Thank you.
Thank you.